Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats postgame. This is brought to you by Branded Bills. Check it out. Branded Bills, all kinds of good stuff at Branded Bills. Let's see here. We the perfect headwear. Use code PHNX for 20% off. Joined by my buddy John Brogan. I am merely Mike Luke. Hello, Brogan. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How's it going?
Not too bad. All right, now let's talk Arizona Canisius. Now, first of all, Canisius isn't very good. So we need to say that first. But I do not care. I am excited, and I believe what I'm about to say. I believe that this is and we're going to get into the reasons why. I believe this is Tommy Lloyd's best team that he has had for a variety of reasons. Let's digest that first. What say you?
I don't think it's his best offensive team, but I think it's his most complete team. They're going to be tough on the glass. It's going to be one of his better rebounding teams, but defensively, this is going to be the most complete team that he has. His backcourt, Caleb Love will be the worst defender in the backcourt. That's a good problem to have, but you've got, essentially 2 7-footers now that Veesaar's somehow shown up this year and able to play. You've got Waka who's physical in the paint. You've got Bryant who's athletic on the wing. And so they're going to be able to do and match up a lot with a lot of teams and go to different lineups and matchups defensively. So I think this is his most complete team, which he needs come tournament time, because we've seen him flame out a little early, but this team feels like they can cover a lot of gaps when the tournament shows up.
All right, let's talk about the defense first. Then I want to get to the depth. But defensively, Arizona's not had a point guard like Jaden Bradley in the Tommy Lloyd era. You had Kirk Kriisa, not a good defender. You had Kylan Boswell. His brain was everywhere but the game most of the time. Jaden Bradley, whatever you think about him offensively, Jaden Bradley is an absolute monster defensively. He gets his hands everywhere. He steals a ton of passes. I mean, I still go back to that Clemson game where they just started calling fouls on him because they couldn't believe he was stealing the ball each time. It's going to be fascinating to see what they do with Jaden Bradley, or what Jaden Bradley is able to provide this team, because Tommy Lloyd has not had something like this at that point guard spot.
Well, he had something like him last year. He just refused to play him until it was too late. But
that's on, that's on Tommy Lloyd for sure.
Yeah, Lloyd's biggest flaw so far to date has been point guard play. As you mentioned, Kriisa, no show in the tournament. Boswell, no show in the tournament. Bradley's game travels because his defense is always going to be there. He's going to get to the free throw line. He's going to get to the basket. And so you're not going to have any point guard issues come tournament time. And in Clemson, against Clemson, he was the best player we had. And so I think he sets the tone with his defense. He's a pest. He can pick up full court. He can play man-to-man. He can jump passing lanes. He does a lot of different things that they haven't had. And when you pair that with KJ Lewis, who's an elite on-ball defender, physical, tough rebounder, can guard 4 positions, that backcourt is going to be a problem defensively, no question.
All right, let's talk a little bit on the up front then. This is a big physical team, and I think that's also what's exciting about this. You don't have a bunch of guys that are just kind of there. You're just kind of filling spots. Henry Veesaar is actually good. We've got to give Henry Veesaar, and he's clearly going to be an issue. Mo Krivas is good. Trey Townsend is good. Toby Awaka, the man of girth, is good. You've got 4 big dudes that can all play. And I think that physicality is going to bring a lot, is going to mean a lot come Big 12 play, especially.
Yeah, and I think what impressed me the most tonight is seeing how good and the lateral quickness is for Awaka and Townsend, even Krivas to an extent. It seemed like with Balo the last 2 years, or even to Bellis a little bit, is anytime teams would get late in the shot clock, they would run screen and roll. We would run the, Tommy Lloyd's patented drop coverage, and Balo would just back up to the hoop, and we would just get roasted. Now it feels like, just watching tonight, watching the exhibition games, Awaka's going to be a little more dynamic covering screen and rolls. We know Townsend's going to have, the foot speed to be able to guard screen and rolls. So I think that will change their defensive coverage a lot this year, which has been kind of an Achilles heel for them. But you also aren't going to get any easy baskets in the paint with Veesaar, Krivas, and Awaka. They're just too big, too strong. They're not dynamic shot blockers, but they're going to affect a lot of shots with their length. And so, again, it anchors the defense. It allows your guards to be a little more aggressive because you've got a bunch of size in the paint. You're not going to be able to just necessarily, give up layups because you got Tubelis who's flat-footed in the paint.
Yeah. Now let's talk about Awaka. I don't know that there's necessarily been somebody like Awaka. And again, I don't want to make him out like he's Michael Wright or something because, he's not. But Awaka, though, he has a knack. And a lot of times you can tell a lot of times, like in the NBA, I get really annoyed by the per 48 dweebs because they extrapolate something out to make it out like Steve Kerr is as good as Klay Thompson or something like that. But it does have a time and a place. And Awaka's numbers last year: 5 points, 5 rebounds in 13 minutes. That was, and against big boy competition, you could just tell that the man has a knack for getting rebounds, and that is something that you're going to need in the Big 12. Again, I've been using this phrase a lot. I'm going to keep using it. Toby Awaka seems like every Houston big man. They're all like 6'6", 6'7", 225 pounds, really tough physical girth, solid base to them. He's a problem, man. He's a real problem, and he's going to be tough to keep off the court.
Well, he's aggressive. And so when you have somebody that size, he's attacking every single rebound, offensive, defensive, like it's his. I mean, there's one play early in the game where him and Veesaar slam into each other because they're both fighting for a rebound. The ball goes out of bounds. But you'll take that because no matter what you can't have is I'll never forget the DeAndre Ayton highlight where he's standing out of bounds watching other teams get offensive rebounds, right? And so as long as the big men are active and aggressive and trying to rebound, which is where Awaka shines, they're going to get a bunch of rebounds because they've got a bunch of size. So, sorry, the 69th person threw me off.
Right. Yes.
But again, they're big, they're physical, they're aggressive. And this team is going to be, Lloyd's had some awesome rebounding teams. This team, with the way that KJ Lewis rebounds, the way that Carter Bryant can rebound, Townsend we know can rebound, they're going to be, I think this will be his best defensive team, and I think it will be his best rebounding team.
Yes, it's got to be. It's got to be his best rebounding team. Now let's talk about a little bit about the depth. Yes. Now, by the way, everybody hit the like button. I do a terrible job of telling people to hit the like button. Please hit the like button. This is the one thing with Tommy Lloyd's teams is they've been very, very good. You and I have been talking about this after watching Brent Brennan, and you and I have been big Tommy Lloyd fans from the beginning. We need Tommy Lloyd here as long as possible. There will be no criticizing Tommy Lloyd ever again after what we've watched in football. We know what bad coaching looks like, but I got to give him a lot of credit because he's filled this roster out now where everybody that he puts out on the court can play. There's been a couple guys that were kind of there. They didn't necessarily stink, but you're just trying to steal minutes. Whether you're going with Carter Bryant, whether you're going with a Mo Krivas or a Henry Veesaar, which, feel even a Del Orso who sheer thinks stinks. And I totally disagree with him on that. Everybody coming in has a capability of being able to push that lead forward. That's exciting, dude.
Well, and again, the team's legit 9 deep. Del Orso averaged 20 points a game at Campbell, so he can play. Like, there's no question about that. And now that Veesaar has shown to be a capable 3-point shooter, it gives Lloyd so much flexibility with his roster because now you can play him in Krivas. You can play him in Awaka because on offense, he can stand at the 3-point line if he has to. And you're not clogging up the paint with 2 big men. That was something they lost the last couple of years where you've got, I go back to Tubelis and Ballo where neither of them could shoot outside of, Ballo had the push shot from 12 feet and Tubelis had that little free throw line jumper, but that was the extent of it. Now Veesaar legit can stretch the floor. And so, there's going to be a lot of different roster combos where everybody on the floor can play, and it's going to give Arizona a lot of versatility, which you're going to need. They got a tough schedule, so they're going to need versatility.
Yeah, we're going to get to that schedule here in just a second. But first, John Brogan, you are always looking for a new vehicle. This is true. You have 3 Rugrats running around the house. This is true. You go and you pay cash to get your vehicles. I have an idea for you. Sanderson Ford for the next one. Have you thought about getting a Sanderson Ford? Have you heard of Sanderson Ford?
I have heard of Sanderson Ford. I don't know that I'll be going to Sanderson Ford. Maybe. Maybe.
All right. Well, either way, John Brogan, you cannot go to Sanderson Ford. I will go to Sanderson Ford if I had the money. Because either way, check it out. Sanderson Ford, OAC through Ford credit up to $4,000 cash or $4,000 cash back. Requires trade in a 95 or newer vehicle. Offer expires November 30th. Get the new 2024 Ford F-150 trucks with a 3.9 APR financing for 66 months, plus up to $4,000 cash back. Similar savings on over 900 new and pre-owned vehicles on the Sanderson Ford. Check it out, Sanderson Ford. All kinds of really, really good stuff. Also, what kind of sunglasses are you rocking, John Brogan? You should be rocking Shady Rays.
Now that I might try.
All right. Shady Rays. That is an endorsement from John Brogan right there. Shady Rays. Check it out. All kinds of good stuff with Shady Rays exclusively for our listeners. Shady Rays giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Thank me later. Check it out. Shady Rays. People of the U of A all wearing Shady Rays. All right. Now, Caleb Love. I like what I saw from Caleb Love. Listen, Caleb Love is probably never going to play in the NBA. And I always tell people this, I would still like to have his future. He's going to make a lot of money. But if Caleb Love does play in the NBA, he's going to have to make himself do something more than basically be a 41% shooter. He's going to have to be able to get into the paint and be able to maybe create for others a little bit. I'll be honest, man. Again, it's Canisius. They stink. I get all of that. But I like what I saw. It was an under control Caleb Love. And honestly, I've never understood why, and I've said this for the longest time. Caleb Love is not just one of these like stiffs that just has to stand around the 3-point line and shoot. He can get into the lane. He can create for others. I like what I saw.
Yeah, and look, Caleb Love, first-team All-American last year, is going to be first-team All-American this year. Has a legit chance to be Big 12 Player of the Year. And so anytime you can return that, you kind of take what you can get. But he has a very, very specific role with this team, and that's to score. It's great that he had 6 assists tonight. He's going to have games where he has assists because he has the ball in his hands a lot. But in big games, they're going to need his offense, and they're going to need him to score, and they're going to need him to make big shots. And so, I don't know that I'm expecting him to all of a sudden, average 15, 6, and 6.
Right.
But if he can be a supplemental playmaker to Bradley, like Bradley's the guy who's going to run the show and create for others in my mind.
He can be a 1.5 at times when he's out on the court. Yes.
Yeah. If Love can be kind of that backup point guard, can also create and not force up a bunch of crazy shots, no more one-legged threes. Then I like him as a supplemental ball handler. It's kind of how I think about Devin Booker for the Suns. When he's a point guard, they're worse, but he can create for others. And so I kind of think of Love in that same fashion.
Now, let's talk about this team going into the Big 12. I believe that this is Tommy Lloyd's best equipped team to go into the Big 12 because, again, as we always talk about, the Big 12 is a totally different conference. Again, it is gone on physicality. Kerr Kriisa would not have done well in the Big 12. You maybe get away with it a game or two. You don't get away with it in the Big 12. Kylan Boswell would not have probably gotten away with it either. I love the perimeter, and I'm going to continue to stand by this. KJ Lewis, Caleb Love, and Jaden Bradley as my 3, and we're going to get to the bench here in a second. But that feels like a Big 12 perimeter, Brogan.
Didn't Kerr Kriisa try his hand in the Big 12 last year?
Yeah, and he's out. Yeah, he's in Kentucky now. Let me know how that works out.
The Big 12, they're what the Big 10 wants to be. Physical, athletic. They play with more tempo than the Big 10 does. Right. But the Big 10 takes pride in being physical. The Big 12 is actually physical. When you go on the road in the Big 12, you're playing against a lot of teams that will grind out on defense. You think about your Iowa States, your Houstons, your Baylors. They're athletic. And this is the first Arizona team where they're going to be able to match that athleticism, that physicality. And they're going to need it because, again, they're going to the Big 12, 5 teams in the preseason top 10. And so, I hate to think about going into the Big 12 with Boswell or Kriisa as the point guard because it would have got ugly in a lot of those road games, and we'd be having some of these post games extremely frustrated. Right. But with Bradley, Love, and Lewis, feels like Arizona's in good shape no matter who we play.
Let's talk Carter Bryant now. when it is a nice little thing. It feels very UConn-esque, even though I'm not comparing it to UConn, to be able to have your best NBA prospect, a guy who's probably a lottery pick at some point, coming off the bench. Bryant's the goods, man. I mean, we've talked about it before. Whether you watch him play, there are some people that their game is just better translated to the NBA, and that's not saying that he's not going to be a really good college player, but just the way that he carries himself, the way that he dribbles, the way that he pulls up, the way that he has an NBA feel to him. This is the epitome of somebody that what you're watching now is going to be totally different 3 months from now, and that's a good thing because he's already really good.
Yeah, and he's still a true freshman coming in, so you're going to expect games where he scores 15. You're going to have games where he scores 4. But the key to him is if you just watch how he plays, then to your point, you see the way he moves. You see the way he can handle the ball. You see the way he can shoot it. You see the way he rebounds. His effort on defense is there. I know Tommy said, hey, he's got to learn to play with effort all the time, whatever.
Right.
Tonight you saw that, though. But he definitely is – he's 6'8". He definitely fits the part of NBA guy. He's 6'8". He plays on the perimeter. He's not a power forward, right? He makes that pretty clear. So I'm excited for him. The fact that he's able to get a lot of minutes early in the rotation means he's going to be a key contributor for them come tournament time for sure.
This starting lineup is definitely set. This is going to be the starting lineup barring injury. I mean, outside of maybe the center position because it's going to move around a little bit. But those 4 are set. Those guys are all going to start. But he does feel like he's going to push the role so much that he's going to be that Jason Terry almost. Again, I'm not saying he's Jason Terry, but that sixth man off the bench that's almost playing starter minutes because he's so good by the end. Let me ask you this. When you look at this team right now, what weaknesses do you see from a roster, from a skill, because in the past we could always say something. Didn't have enough guys that could make plays off the bounce, few too many weenies out there. What do you see this year? What would Coach John Brogan, coach at Greenfields, John Brogan, how would he attack with his Greenfields roster?
They're definitely not a naturally good shooting team. Right. Like we manufacture threes, but they don't have a ton of guys who can just get hot and make threes. Love is really streaky, shot 33% or whatever he shot last year. You know, KJ Lewis caught the ball in transition or off a rebound or something and fired up an air ball, right? On a kind of a set shot 3. So Del Orso's probably the most natural 3-point shooter on the roster, and that's his role, and that's why he's going to play. But I'm not necessarily concerned about it because their defense and their rebounding is so strong. And they're going to have games where they make a lot of threes, but they're also going to have games where they go 5 for 25 from 3 because they're just not natural at it. They don't have anybody who's just pure shooter besides Del Orso. So if there's one Achilles heel, I could see them going on the road second half of a Saturday, Sunday game and then making 5 threes and losing a road game that maybe they shouldn't lose. But, there's a lot of ways to overcome not being lights out from 3. So I'm not necessarily concerned about it, but that would be the one weak spot, I think.
All right, now we're getting questions about Brent Brennan. We're going to talk about him for probably the last 10 minutes of the show, but we want to talk about good things right now. But what I also think, though, that where this team is better equipped, though, than in previous years is this team, I believe, can win slow down games where I believe this team can get to the free throw line. I believe there's multiple guys that can live in the lane. And that was the problem with, say, last year's team or the team before that is that, their free throw numbers, weren't their 3-point numbers were good, but you never really looked at Arizona and you're like, man, that's a dynamic 3-point shooting team. And I don't care that it was 41% or whatever. When teams periodically dare you to shoot threes, you're probably not a great 3-point shooting team. So that doesn't, but this year's team, Townsend didn't even do much this game. I have no doubt that Townsend is going to be able to do that. Love, KJ Lewis, Jaden Bradley, big man Mount Crevis. You're going to have a lot of different dudes that are going to be able to get a lot of free throws and slow the game down when it's slowed down. And I think that's what's exciting about this.
Yeah, and when the game slows down, you're going to be able to get post up Crevis. You're going to be able to post up Townsend. You're going to be able to hit him at the elbow, and he's going to be able to score for you. That's where he'll really shine. And you've also got your defense is going to create turnovers and get you easy buckets, which is that's how Houston wins. They just pressure the crap out of you. They offensive rebound. They get a couple runouts, and they can score slow down half-court games. Arizona's got a little bit of that in them this year where they're going to be able to really play defense, create a ton of pressure, get some easy buckets, get some offensive rebound putbacks that's going to really help them in the games where they don't shoot that well. I mean, they shot 28% or whatever from 3 and scored 93 points. I get it's Canisius, but still, they can score in a bunch of different ways, which again, if you're not making threes, you've got to be able to get buckets in other ways, which they can do. So, this team's going to hang their hat on defense and rebounding and free throws. It's not going to be threes.
Yeah, now let's Mr. Tyler Warden, the great Mr. Tyler Warden, the very tall Tyler Warden, says, Tommy calling out the effort in the press conference, or are we about to see Tommy holding people accountable? You know what's weird about Tommy Lloyd with the accountability factor is, yeah, I agree. Yes, I agree. But you know what's weird about Tommy Lloyd is that he holds people accountable after the season. But so far he hasn't done it during the season. And I'm going to keep going with it. And I'm going to keep saying this, that when it comes to Boswell, to me will always be kind of a black mark. I don't know how else really to put it. You had a guy that clearly didn't really care, and he basically did whatever he wanted, and the coach essentially allowed him to basically do it. But if you are going to allow your players to do that, I think it's more important than to at least get a tough-minded group of players in here. And that's something I don't have to worry about where Jaden Bradley's mindset is. I don't have to worry about where Caleb Love or KJ Lewis or Trey Townsend I don't have to worry about that. So if you are going to have the nice guy routine, you better have dogs then that are totally committed to what they want to do.
Yeah, look, Tommy's the ultimate players coach. Right. He's going to back his players till the bitter end, no matter what, which you sacrifice some accountability for that, for sure. We saw that with Boswell last year, but there is upside to that. These players will play loose. They'll play free. I mean, you saw them firing up threes left and right at the start of the game. They hit a bunch to start. But no, he's not going to hold people accountable. He's not going to sit people because he didn't think they played hard against Canisius the entire game. That's just not who he is. He's going to say the right things in press conferences for sure. But to your point, I think he finally has a roster where he doesn't have to worry about that. He's not going to have people who aren't showing up wanting to win. Say what you want about Caleb Love and his 41% shooting, his one-legged threes. He wants to win bad, and everything he does is him trying to win. So you can take some of the bad with the good because he cares about winning. Same thing with Bradley, same thing with Lewis. You see it in their effort. And so this team is filled with guys who appear to want to win. So the accountability will kind of take care of itself.
I think it takes care of itself. Now we are going to talk a little bit about that Duke game coming up and what we're going to learn from that. But first, John Brogan, you like sports betting. This is correct.
Sure.
Okay, well, theoretically, you like it. In theory, you like it. You should go to the Gila River Resorts and Casinos and try it. Everybody get the wave going, the wave, the wave, the wave. Brogan, have you seen the Gila River Resorts and Casinos from I-10 when you are traveling up and down from the motherland?
Very familiar with it.
Yes, exactly. Check it out, though. The Gila River Resorts and Casinos, a fun, immersive experience there at the Gila River Resorts and Casinos. You do you. Visit playatgila.com for more details. Again, all kinds of really good stuff. Again, people get the wave going here in the comments. We only have one wave in there. That is not acceptable. It's a really cool place. They got a Top Golf there as well. All kinds of good stuff. Check it out. Also, branded bills. Branded bills. Now, listen, there are some pretty cool hats. Is that a branded bills hat you're wearing?
This one is not, but I have a couple.
No, they're pretty cool hats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, I wore one in San Diego. I had somebody even ask me if it was a brand. Actually, they didn't. But if I was cool enough, they probably would have. Branded bills, though. Check it out. Branded bills. All right. Here is the deal with branded bills. You can be like Kevin Thomas, or say you're a cool guy like Kevin Thomas and you want to wear branded bills, or let's say you're not cool like Jason Shearer. Jason Shearer, not cool, but you know what would make him cool is if he wore a branded bills. Head to brandedbills.com and use code PHNX for 20% off your first order. What kind of, do you have a U of A branded bills?
I do not have a U of A. I have an all white American flag with a blue and white stripe thing. And then I've got
nice.
Black,
I like it.
A black one. Yeah.
I like it. All right. Well, either way, branded bills, support your country and get a branded bills. How about that? Yes. USA. All right.
On election eve. No.
Yes, on election eve. Yes. I've actually there's this guy on Twitter that has asked me probably like 9 times if I will endorse a candidate. No, because here's the other thing. If I do not, I will not endorse a candidate because anybody that is going by what I think should not be voting. So
Same.
That is it.
Agreed.
Yes, exactly. That's it's just the way it is. All right, let's talk Henry Veesaar for a moment here. Henry Veesaar. I'll be honest with you, man. I was super skeptical of Henry. I didn't expect anything of him. But the great thing about basketball is the ultimate eye test game, and that I don't necessarily need to see you against great competition. I can kind of get an idea of how you're moving, what your confidence level is like, how you are looking. Henry's going to play every single game this year, and Henry's going to be a difference maker in a lot of different games. I got to give a shout out to Tommy Lloyd on this one. I didn't see him turning Veesaar into a player. Veesaar can play.
Well, we were scratching our heads a little bit in the offseason when Morauskas transferred and Veesaar was staying, and we were like, well, okay, was that Lloyd's decision? They both can't stay because there's not enough minutes. But, I think the play that kind of summed up where Veesaar's at was early in the game. He's trailing, he catches it, fires a 3 hits like it was normal for him to do.
Right.
And so he's going to have a role because he's the best shot blocker on the roster, and he's the biggest guy who can stretch the floor. I do think the team goes 7 deep with Bryant and Awaka-Krivas, whatever at the center position. I think Delorso and Veesaar are more change of pace, 12, 14-minute a game guys against
the ones that are kind of could be phased out depending on the game. Yeah, because I
don't think they're phased out because they both have a distinct role, and one of Veesaar's is going to be interior, defense and shooting. Delorso is shooting, a little bit of playmaking. I don't think they'll be phased out, but I think you can expect 20 plus minutes out of Bryant and the backup center, whether it's Awaka or Krivas. Then I think you're 12 to 14 minutes. I don't think Conrad plays at all in games that mean anything. He'll play in blowouts, and that's about it. But Veesaar has earned minutes because the first 2 seasons, he was hurt, one of them obviously, but he was unplayable at times where he could barely move him down the floor. Now he looks like he's a little more fluid. Again, he can shoot it. He can block shots. And so there's a role for guys like that especially when you're 7 foot tall.
Yes, there's a role for it. And the other thing, too, is that he can block shots. And that is something that it's either inherent or it's not. You and I have talked about this a billion times. And you mentioned DeAndre Ayton earlier in the show, and I will mention him again. DeAndre Ayton looks like he should be able to block shots. DeAndre Ayton can't block shots. The effort, the energy, and more importantly, the instincts are just not there. Henry can block shots. If you were to play, and this is wild to say, but if you were to play DeAndre Ayton for 40 minutes in a college basketball game and play Henry Veesaar 40 minutes, listen, obviously DeAndre Ayton is a far superior basketball player. Henry Veesaar would block more shots. So it's an interesting thing, but it's also a nice little dilemma to have a good player. No, it's not a dilemma, but
Luxury.
When you're going, yes, it's a luxury. But if you're going against Houston, if you're going against Baylor, by the way, is Baylor getting destroyed right now? What is the score in that game?
They were getting destroyed. What's the score now? Somebody in the comment section.
Yes, a couple people mentioned that as well. I did not know that.
49-30 at the half.
Wow. All right. Well, yeah. Wow. All right. Well, maybe that's not a great, but either way, against, say, a Kansas where you got a Hunter Dickinson who doesn't really scare me, but whatever. I mean, he's still good. You got a KJ Adams. You also got the 6'11" big man. You can never have too many bigs, especially in the Big 12. So that's a nice little luxury.
Yeah, and Awaka strikes me as a guy who's going to have games where he's fouling a lot because he's a little, bigger, a little slower, whatever. And so you need that third guy in your rotation. And Veesaar's shown that now he's competent enough to be, if he has to play 25 minutes in a game, no problem. Like, we're good with it. If that was, a year or two ago, we're like, Arizona's losing by 10 if he has to play 25 minutes a game. So it's nice to have for sure.
All right, I'm going to say something here about Conrad Martinez because I keep getting people that are like, oh, Conrad. And listen, I'd love to be wrong on Conrad Martinez. But by the way, Chippy P, you can put me down as many times as you want, but guess what? I will not change for you. So
as long as he's listening, he can say what he wants, right? Just keep showing up and listening. All good.
It's like Floyd Mayweather said when people would complain about, oh, you're a boring fighter. Well, keep buying my fights, man.
All right, we appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Okay, but Conrad Martinez, you made a very good point on the phone, and I will give you credit on this. this is what people need to remember. I like Conrad Martinez in theory. I think he's a good player, and I'll be honest with you, he's a little bit better than I thought he would I thought that he was. I'll give him that. But when you're going against smaller, slow, sometimes white guys, they kind of look, yeah, it's easier to look good. When you start going against dudes like at Houston, at Baylor, at DeJuan Harris, it's not you're not going to look the same. I mean, especially at the point guard spot. It's just, I'd love to be wrong. I don't see it.
Well, and like we're gonna see it against Duke. Like he's only playing if Bradley and Love get into foul trouble early, and if they don't, then he's probably not going to play a minute of that game. But if he plays 10 minutes in that game, then Tommy knows something we don't know, but I'll be surprised when I see it.
Hey, Brogan, I've had a lot of people asking you about where did you get your hat at? That is a very nice hat.
The Ventana Canyon Pro Shop.
Oh, nice. Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Okay. The Ventana Canyon Pro Shop. Very, very nice. All right. But yes, I agree with you. Your backup point guards are Caleb Love and KJ Lewis until otherwise. Now, let's talk Mo Krivas for a second here. Overall, what are your thoughts on Mo Krivas before we kind of get into his role on the team?
I think he's going to be an important player for them because one thing Lloyd's been really good at Arizona so far is getting a ton of points in the paint. Mm-hmm. They're going to get more points from their guards in the paint than they've gotten in the past, but Lloyd's efficient in his motion offense, getting a bunch of high-low opportunities. Krivas shot almost 80% from the free throw line last year. So there's a ton of things to like about him. He's stronger this year, obviously, but he's got to work his way back into shape because this was his first game back. So, I think about him and Awaka together, and if we get 17 and 12 out of those two,
perfect. That's
great.
all I want.
We're great. And so that means Krivas has to be like 10 and 6 for me to be perfectly happy. But it's going to shoot a high percentage. It's going to make free throws. I'm all good with it.
Yes, Krivas has more girth. This is very true. I think with Krivas, and here's again, I want to give Oumar Ballo. I don't want to turn this into an Oumar Ballo bashing session because he did. First of all, he became way better here than I ever thought he was going to be. So there's that. But I do think at the end of the day that Oumar Ballo's limitations were always going to be something that in certain spots where are going to be significant problems for Arizona that I don't know that the Krivas or Awaka, mix or match you can put in. He was never going to be able to defend the pick and roll. And it was even worse in the drop coverage because then he gets on his feet and he's giving up 10-foot jumpers, or he's just letting a guy get right to the basket. He was never going to be able to make free throws either. That is something that whether it's going with the Krivas or Awaka, I don't worry about. So in a weird way, even though you lost a guy that was 14-9, that to me is not necessarily the worst thing in the world. As a matter of fact, I think Arizona upgraded.
Yeah, and Ballo in the weirdest way was awesome for Arizona, but he kind of ran his course to where it's like, I'm not necessarily super disappointed that he left. Right. Whether it was tough catches that he could never make or, drop coverage, missing free throws, all the different things. He was awesome. He helped Arizona. He helped Tommy kind of continue to build. But yeah, I think Arizona's way more dynamic with Awaka and Krivas. You're better offensively with Krivas, and you're better defensively with Awaka. Put them together, and you're better than what you get from Ballo. So I think long-term for Arizona to win the tournament, this is the right package of bigs, and it's not Ballo plus whoever else you get.
And the thing about too with Krivas, I think Krivas is going to have a couple games where they're going to be able to dump the ball down to him, and he's going to be able to make some plays with his back to the basket that Ballo just never would have been able to make. The only thing that Ballo was going to be able to do from that is if he got down the court quickly and he got the quick seal, yes, he was going to be able to finish that. But you were never really going to give the ball to and he was never going to have a move. He's never going to have a counter hook or anything like that. That was just kind of who he was. So Arizona, though, I think from a depth perspective, the only position that I worry about is the point guard because, like I said, I mean, Jaden Bradley is the only one. But at the, on the wing, if KJ Lewis was to go down for some time, granted, you don't want that to happen. I got Caleb Love. I can move Carter Bryant right into the lineup. If one of the big men are going to go down, I got 3 other dudes that can come in here. This team, I think, is very well equipped outside of the point guard to be able to sustain an injury. Not that you want it, obviously.
Yeah, is there something to Tommy being forced to play Jaden Bradley 32, 33 minutes a
I love
game?
it.
You know,
I love it.
if you had a really competent backcourt or backup point guard, you know, it almost gives Love or Lloyd a reason to play Bradley less, which he already tried that last year. So,
Yeah.
you know, if Bradley gets into foul trouble, it could be a minor problem for them. But I like
Right.
the fact that he's going to be on the floor 32 minutes a game, you know, 30 to 34 minutes a game, depending. Um, and I think he's smart enough to, I mean, this is his third year in college basketball, all high major. I think he's smart enough now to where he's not going to be getting much crazy foul trouble. But I'm totally good if Del Orso's the backup point guard for 3 or 4 minutes a game, and if Love's the backup point guard for the other 8 or 10 minutes a game. That's not a
That's
problem.
all I need. And like I said, like you said, the Devin Booker thing is perfect. I don't want Devin Booker being my guy that is initiating the offense as the rule of thumb. But guess what? If I got to steal 6 to 8 minutes here or there with it, I am more than okay with that. That is that to me is no problem whatsoever. Now you got Duke coming in here. Duke is fascinating to me. Obviously, you've got Cooper Flag. So let's talk about that for a second. Cooper Flag. By the way, would you rather have Cooper Flag or the Ypsilanti kid that's in the next class? That's also the #1 kid.
Probably Flag just because of his defensive and shot blocking ability. I mean,
Yes.
offensively, he's dynamic, but the fact that he's the best shot blocker in college basketball as a true freshman is insane.
And it's all coming off the weak side, which is even more amazing. This is going to be interesting to see what Arizona does with him because in the past, Tommy has tried to man up against bigger wings. I think back to last year with Deron Holmes, where he tried throwing KJ Lewis at him and telling KJ Lewis to basically get deep, and Deron Holmes was just kind of too big for him at times. The Flag one is going to be an interesting matchup. I'm curious to see how Tommy plays that one.
Yeah, and you know, Duke center, I forget his name, but another freshman,
Yeah.
awesome, but he's low post rebounder, can't step outside of 4 feet. So Arizona's going to match up great with him. Townsend's going to get flagged to start, I would imagine. And you know, the good thing about Cooper Flag is he's not looking to come out and score 40.
Right.
He's looking to come
Those
out
are
and
the
play
ones that worry.
basketball.
Right.
Yeah, which means he's going to get 18, 8, and 6 or something crazy. And they've got so many other weapons that that's going to be a tough game. I don't think Duke is super deep though.
Right.
You know, some of the grad transfers they got or the transfers they got are okay, but none of them start because the freshmen are better. And so I think, you know, Arizona's experience having a bunch of older guys on the roster, getting them earlier in the season, I think is really good for Arizona. If you see Duke in the tournament, they're going to be a major problem come tournament time.
Yes, Duke's going to be a problem in the tournament. You get him early though, and Tommy's teams have generally played very, very well in their out of conference schedule. So that's something that you got to keep in mind. And against the better teams, I mean, you look at it last year. You beat Duke in Cameron. You beat Alabama. I think you beat a couple other teams too. That Michigan State turned out to suck, but whatever.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Now it is time for the Back the A Player of the Game, a segment powered by NUTRL. Keep it tasty, Tucson. Enjoy responsibly. My guy, Jaden Bradley, Jamal Shed. I am going to continue to say this. This is Jamal Shed. Why can he not be junior year Jamal Shed? Maybe not senior year, but why can he not be junior year Jamal Shed, John Brogan?
I mean, he probably can. I just don't think he needs to be, right? Jamal Shed was Houston's best player. Arizona has
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Love as their best player. I think
Mm-hmm.
Bradley's role is different for Arizona. It's facilitator, defender guy, not scorer guy. Bradley's awesome, but I don't think Arizona needs him to be Jamal Shed. Maybe next year, but this year they don't need him to be.
By the way, whoever's Taman Lipsy is not better than Cooper Flag. And like Meisner said, Flag held his own against Team USA. Lipsy is not better than him. Sorry. Now let me ask you this: Arizona's upside this season. You know what's kind of interesting about this? Arizona. Listen, Kansas preseason #1. I get all that. I say you can easily see a scenario, and again, I'm not saying it's going to be the case. I can easily see a scenario where Arizona is the best team in the Big 12. The problem, though, is that they get some things that are a little bit, they get Kansas once, it's in fog. That's going to be an issue, obviously. But I really like from top to bottom how this team is constructed to be able to withstand some of the rigors here. It's going to be interesting to see because this is a conference where if you go for, if you go 15-5, you're probably winning the conference because of all the really good teams. And that's not even counting teams like Cincinnati, Texas Tech that are ranked or either borderline ranked that are going to be tough.
Well, and it's nice to not have to sweat a few losses. Like in the Pac-12, if you lost 3 or 4 or 5 conference games, you are now sweating being a 3 seed.
Yeah,
In the Big 12,
exactly.
you could lose 7 conference games and still be a 2 or a 3 seed, no problem, because the schedule is going to be so tough. So, they've got a tough schedule. They've got a lot of the good teams at home: Baylor, Houston, Iowa State. They go to Kansas. Winning, the Duke home game is going to be huge for their profile because Duke's going to finish the year in the top 6 or 7 most likely. And then to your point, if they go 15-5 in the Big 12, they're winning the Big 12 because again, there's 5 teams in the top 10. We have a lot of losses at the top of the Big 12 for the teams that are winning or competing for the title. So, I think 7 losses is probably more realistic, but it doesn't hurt them in terms of their tournament seeding. They're still going to be a top 2-3 seed with 7 losses in the Big 12, I think.
I like this. Let's talk about how Arizona matches up with Kansas, just because Kansas is considered the class of the country. They're considered the class of the Big 12. Jaden Bradley, DeJuan Harris. Worst case scenario, that's a draw for me. I like DeJuan Harris, but DeJuan Harris is not somebody that scares me. Point guards that don't score don't scare me. That's kind of where I'm at with things like that. I love it. I'll take Arizona every day of the week on that. What say you, as far as just matching up at least evenly?
With Kansas?
Yeah.
I think that what worries me about Kansas is they're really, really, really deep. They're another team that goes like 8 or 9 deep. I think Arizona matches up fine.
Right. Let's go position by position by position. But
for the point guard position, yeah, Bradley and Harris are the same player basically. I think Bradley's a little better offensively because he can get to the bucket, get fouled more. He's a little bigger, a little more sturdy, but they're the similar type of position. They thrive on defense and running the team, not necessarily, going to be offensive guys.
All right. Now, comments in here. Very much appreciate all of you. By the way, again, this is my good buddy, John Brogan. John Brogan, very successful person with a lot of inside contacts at the U of A. He was on with me many times at the radio, breaking information. We very much appreciate John Brogan. Okay. Now, on the wings, Caleb Love, KJ Lewis, AJ Storr, Zeke Mayo. I'm fine with Arizona on that one as well. AJ Storr, we know, can play. Zeke Mayo likely can play, but we also don't know that for a fact yet.
Yeah, and I'm assuming today's Kansas game wasn't indicative of what their lineup will be in the come conference play, but Storr and Mayo both came off the bench today. That's how deep Kansas is.
Right, for sure.
But what I would say is, I'm going to take Love and Lewis over just about any wing combination in the league because you've got Love as first team All-American. Kansas doesn't necessarily have. They've got that in Dickinson, but they don't have that on the wings. And so I'm going to take Arizona's wings. It's close. We know Storr's good. We know Mayo's good. Mayo's taking a step up in competition. But if I got to pick one, I'm taking Arizona because of Love.
All right. Now let's at the power forward spot. I feel just fine with Trey Townsend and KJ Adams. KJ Adams is another one. He reminds me more of a Keyshawn Johnson type, which isn't a bad thing, but it's hustle, it's energy, it's, not necessarily energy, but it's, playing defense, getting rebounds. But at the end of the day, you're probably going to look at his box score and he's going to probably have 11 points, 4 rebounds, and whatever. I don't worry about that. As a matter of fact, I will take Trey Townsend over him. I think Trey Townsend is a better player than him.
I think Trey Townsend's definitely better at basketball. I do think that Adams is a key component in what makes Kansas go, because him and Harris are the two guys that are loose balls, offensive rebounds, steals, things of that nature. And so in some ways I can say that Adams is more important to Kansas than maybe Townsend would be to Arizona, because you've got guys who can score and that's going to be Townsend's kind of thing. But I think back to the tournament when Townsend, was lighting up Kentucky and NC State. And so if he's that version of Trey Townsend, then I'll take him over Adams for sure.
And yes, Hunter Dickinson is really, really good, but he also doesn't scare me just because, he's a really, really good college player. He's also somewhat limited. He's, if you put him against good players, he's probably going to be more like 16-7. He's not going to be the Zach Edey where no matter who you put on him, he's going to be 34-15 or whatever the case may be. He's not that dude. So to me, it's going to be fascinating. Like I said, I think that they match up fairly similarly, to be honest with you. That's why I'm kind of interested to see how this all does play out. Excuse me. Now with Del Orso, I want to talk about him for a second. Here's why I like Del Orso. And there's going to be nights where Del Orso doesn't play a lot. I get all of that. Del Orso is a shooter. Now, again, there's going to be nights when he's not going to be making a shot. You're a shooter, bro. You know it when he hunts his shots. When he gets the ball, his first option is, I want to be able to shoot a three-pointer. That is the sign of a shooter. And there's going to be some games. I guarantee you he's going to have a 6 or a 7 3-point game this year. There's probably going to be a couple of those games. There's also going to be games where he's 0-5 and he's not playable. But that is also something that I like having, though. I like having that at my disposal. Arizona did not have that last year at their disposal. Nobody that really you're like, okay, if he gets the ball, he's looking to get his 3-point shot. Maybe Caleb Love, but he's not a good enough 3-point shooter to be able to make that happen. I like Del Orso, and I think he's going to have some really big games for Arizona this year.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to necessarily have Dylan Smith PTSD here, but Muehlbach was talking about Del Orso had 20 games of 20 or more points and 3 games of 30 or more points last year. Right. And so he can score, like there's no question about that, but he's definitely the most natural shooter on the roster by a mile. Like it's not even close. And so they're going to need him to be somebody who can come off the bench, stretch the floor a little bit, make some shots. He can also handle the ball. He's pretty creative in how he scores. He's not just kind of catch and shoot set shot guy. And so he has a role carved out for him because the team, again, isn't so natural at shooting the basketball. So he's going to get his 10 to 15 minutes a game. He's going to get plenty of shots up with how dynamic kind of Love and Bradley are off the bounce. And so I would expect to see some big games out of him. And I'm hoping he's saving his big games for the actual real competition and not the Canisius of the schedule.
Yeah. I know that's kind of where I'm at. Now, Exaggerated History says, I live in Georgia. Any advice on how I can watch U of A basketball? Get ESPN Plus. They're going to be on. It's going to be like half the games this season. Get Matt Muehlbach. Yes, by the way, Matt Muehlbach, a lot of good phrases today. He had back the A, he had girth, he had mini Mamba. Matt Muehlbach, we very much appreciate you. Now, before that, though, it is now time for the Desert Financial Credit Union by the numbers. Arizona's #1 credit union named by Forbes. Let's talk about the 3-point shooting. Defensively. Last year, that was a problem for Arizona. They gave up a bunch of 3-point, there were games where you're basically just begging teams to shoot 3-pointers. Here's where I'm at with that. If that's the case this year, then that's just a total Lloyd philosophy as opposed to not having the personnel to do it, because he's got the personnel to be able to do it.
Yeah, and I think this game was a little bit tough because they got jumped out to a big lead, and they were, you see the 15 steals of blocks. They were jumping passing lanes and being a little more aggressive, trying to get and run out. But I think they're going to contest a lot more threes this year than maybe they have in the past with Lloyd. Lloyd seemed to be pretty content about, if somebody drives, we're going to pack the paint and not give them an easy bucket. If they kick and shoot a 3, great. The problem is you get teams like Stanford last year who start making them, and once they get it going, you can't turn it off, and then you end up just taking a loss. So this team, again, best defensive team he's had. Their perimeter defense is going to be lights out. So I'm not too worried about teams just, shooting 40% from 3 against Arizona.
All right, now let's go. We got a few minutes, then we're going to talk about Brent Brennan here. By the way, sheer tomorrow at 10:30, but now we are joined by our sideline reporter, the lovely Erika L. Day. Hello, Erika L. Day. How are you doing?
I'm very good. How's everybody doing on this fine Monday evening?
Not bad. We have a group chat, Jason Shear, me, John Brogan, Ben White, and Cody James Martin. And besides just the group chat I have with you, this is John Brogan. John Brogan, meet Erika L. Day, vice versa. Hello.
Hello, John Brogan. I'm feeling a little bit FOMO because I'm being left out of group chats, but nonetheless, we'll make a new group chat.
Yes,
yeah, you don't want to be in this one anyways.
Yeah, there's a lot of crude talk in this group. Actually, you'd fit right in this group chat.
I was going to say, have you been in our group chat recently, Mike?
Yeah, no, I have been in group chat. Okay, Miss hello, Saul Bookman. How are you doing today?
He can't hear you, but the boss says hi.
All right, now fill me in. The Tommy gun. Give me the mentality of the Tommy gun.
Well, it sounds to me like the goal was to get Mo Krivas about 10 minutes. So he met that goal. He did well in those 10 minutes. I think Tommy's goal is to be able to play whatever lineup, suits the matchup. And whether that's Mo and, oh my goodness, guys, my brain is actually turned off.
Henry Veesaar.
Thank you. Whether it's Mo and Henry at the same time, Mo and Henry separately, I think he's just willing to do whatever the best lineup is for the matchup. That being said, Mo is obviously still not at 100%. We heard from multiple people that he's just been back at practice for just a couple days. There's been no decision at this point made about Emmanuel Steven. That being said, him being in street clothes, I feel like is a pretty big indicator that he will be redshirting for the season. But other than that, he seems pretty satisfied with the lineups that he went with tonight. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot of variance in his lineups moving forward.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Brogan, we were talking about that. I think that you can mix and match a lot with this roster. And I think that's what's kind of appetizing about all of this.
As long as we don't have to hear the 4 peaks this year, then I'll be good with whatever rotation of bigs we have.
No, it's the Girth Gang this year.
That's worse.
No,
That's worse.
Is the Girth Gang worse than the 4 peaks?
Yeah, way worse.
What? Oh,
way worse.
I love the
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I will say though is Veesaar being able to step in and actually play competent minutes this year is going to give Lloyd a lot of roster flexibility. The fact that he can shoot it gives him a little more dynamic stuff out of his bigs, because Awaka and Krivas are going to be kind of 12 feet and in. And so he's going to be a wild card this year for sure for him.
And Emmanuel Steven is going to redshirt. He should redshirt because there's no minutes for him. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. People also need to remember this about generally, let me tell you something. Generally, big men that are like 6'11", that are really built and can block shots, they also generally have no offensive game whatsoever. They can get an offensive game, but think freshman year Christian Coloco. It's just difficult to play him. And Erika Elday, I think the very tanned Erika Elday would agree with this. Yes, we have a comment here saying, "No, Erika, you look very tan today. What's going on there?"
Well, I will be honest in that I did my makeup in the dark today, so that could potentially be why I look a little different than normal.
Ben One White does his makeup in the dark every day, and it doesn't look that tan.
You guys hear that? That's Caleb Love yelling, actually. Say hello, everybody in the chat.
Hello, Caleb Love. Hey, Caleb Love. Hey, you want to hear something, Brogan? At Media Day, he called me the YouTube guy. He knew who I was.
Ooh, big time. Yeah. Matt Luke,
Yeah.
the YouTube guy.
Yeah,
I just want to say, with Saul here, I got to tell him our wonderful walk-on Del Taco cheeseburger story, and he laughed so hard. I just want you to know. He laughed so hard. And nonetheless, I wish we had gotten some minutes from said walk-on tonight. I think he deserved just a minute in the game. Come on now.
I do not. I will hold that against him the rest of my life.
Even just 1 minute so we can hee-haw about it?
Nope.
He turns the ball over every time he comes into the game. It's awesome.
That's I will say that. That's not the worst thing in the world. I will say that. I will say that. Real quick, before then we're going to talk about Brent Brennan for a few minutes. Arizona women's basketball. Tell us about the Lady Cats. Is that the term? Is that the correct term, Lady Cats?
Yeah, they won. I was going to say I don't remember the score, but I have it right here in front of me. A lot to a little is the score. 73-54. Sorry, I've lived a lot of life since then, but nonetheless, the Lady Cats played really well today. Jada Williams had a cold shooting night. That being said, if it had been last year and Jada Williams had a cold shooting night like she did tonight, the Arizona Wildcats would have lost by 30. But luckily, they have a lot more depth than they had at the same time last season, and they're not running with a bench of quite literally 2 people. So, it kind of similar to the men's team. There's a lot more offensive options on this team to score the ball, and so they performed well. They're not getting out rebounded like they used to last year, and their bigs are able to stay in the games, which again is not something I was able to say at this same point in last season, even night 1. So I'm pretty satisfied, and I've been saying like I'm not willing to really judge this team or put any expectations on them until I see a couple games, and I still think that that's true. I can't say I think they're going to finish 3rd in the Big 12 or anything like that, but I do not think they are going to be bad. So that's good.
Hey, Erika, you'll like this. There's somebody in this that knows less about women's basketball than me. and that would be the man. And actually, Brogan, do you know less than about women's basketball than me? Or are we?
Proudly.
I just want to say,
Proudly.
before Mike goes on and says any of this, Mike and I were on the phone one night, and he named 20 women's basketball players on his own accord. No help.
All time, too. It was amazing. I was Nancy Lieberman Stein,
Cheryl Miller.
Yeah, Cheryl Miller.
I don't even think he named Cheryl Miller. He named a lot of college players. I was impressed. I'm not going to lie.
Cheryl Leslie, or who is not Cheryl Leslie?
Lisa Leslie. Nice try, but close.
Lisa Leslie, Adia Barnes.
This is true.
Ari McDonald, who I actually beat one-on-one.
You don't have to rename the whole list now, Mike.
All right. Erika Elday, you did very, very good work. Very much appreciate you, Erika Elday, our sideline reporter, the lovely Erika Elday.
I'll be back with you guys in no time. See you then.
All right. TTFN, ta-ta for now. All right. All right, we need to talk about something here. We got a few minutes left in the show. We need to talk about something here. I do not care what anybody says. Brent Brennan, you and I were on the phone about this earlier. I believe if you can get somehow, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow. By the way, we're going to talk about we'll talk about furries tomorrow. I didn't. By the way, are there furries at your kid's school, Brogan?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I thought that it was funny. I messaged Sheer, or maybe I tweeted it out, and I said, "Man, there's furries everywhere in San Diego." And I didn't realize it was Halloween. Yeah, no, I had no clue, and they were because I was like, "Holy moly, they're everywhere in San Diego." But Brent Brennan, I'm sure he's a great guy. It is impossible to do a worse job with this team than he did. When you and I were talking about it, you could get a guy that you could get somebody for $50,000 that could have done every bit this job. I believe if you can find a way to get rid of him, you have to find a way to get rid of him. Period.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you go to your buddy's house and you're having dinner for the first time there, and his mom makes chicken and it's like got no seasoning. It's the blandest chicken you've ever had in your life. That's Brent Brennan. There's just nothing dynamic about it. So there's just nothing dynamic. And so, he took a team that was supposed to be top 3 in the Big 12. I almost made this, comment when Erika was talking about women's basketball is before don't count your chickens, but they were supposed to be top 3 in the Big 12. And now they're the worst team in the Big 12. I mean, maybe not even Houston, they beat Kansas State now. So we're the worst team in the Big 12. So I don't know that I could have broke it that bad had I been the head coach. That's a problem.
No, it's a massive problem. And now I think some of his quotes too about how, this team wasn't nearly as good. That's all crap. You know what else I don't like either? I don't like watching when a coach every single time in the presser says the exact same thing. I know we have a really good coaching staff. I know we have really good players. Dude, you literally just got destroyed by a UCF team that got rid of half of its coaching staff because of how underperforming they've been. I don't believe, and here's the other thing too, nobody, and when I tell you this, nobody wants another offseason of Brent Brennan. Nobody wants to, hey, what's more bland, the coaching or the actual name Brent Brennan?
Probably the coaching, because it's been historically bad, but
this has been worse. I think some people don't get this. This has been worse than Sumlin. Because here's the thing. Someone inherited a roster that didn't have 3 first-round picks or whatever the case may be, and returned a bunch of different starters, and he still won 5 games. This dude, you're looking at what, best case scenario, 4-8? I mean, and here's the problem too. These are embarrassing losses. These are, I mean, the UCF game was embarrassing what he's done. So if you can get rid of him, I'm of the point you've got to get rid of him, period.
Well, and if you're the athletic director, right, it's not your hire. Right. And do you really want to be athletic director at a school where the football program is just spiraling out of control? You win 3 games, 4 games this year. Noah transfers, let's just say, and then you win 2 or 3 games next year, with the same coach, different players. I don't think that's a place that Beatty wants to put herself in. And so I could see them. They're going to have to round up some money, no question, but I could see them making a move at the end of the season for sure.
Now, I want to make a case for something. Meisner, my good buddy Meisner, in here disagrees with me. I believe he is wrong. I would 1,000% be totally cool with bringing back Rich Rod. Listen, I have no clue if it could actually happen. Here's my case for Rich Rod, is that every single season you'd win 7 to 8 games. Every 5th year you'd probably be really good. Every 6th year you'd have a really bad season. But guess what? You would lose games, and when we will lose, it would be 64 to 57 or something like that. Entertained me. At least with Rich Rod, I would be entertained.
Yeah, and Arizona's losing by 40 regularly now, which is a problem, right? And so there's a difference between losing and there's a difference between getting blown out every game. T-Mac's a junior, but he's going to the NFL. He's going to be a top 10 pick, so he's not coming back. But the problem with Brennan is they lose. The offense, which was supposed to score 40 points a game and close to 500 yards a game, is averaging 15 points a game since like their first 2 games or whatever. And then in every presser, it's like, well, we just got to do some things a little differently. Well, no, you kind of got to do everything differently. Yes. And so, you're down 21 points on 4th and 4 at midfield and you punt. Like that pretty much summarized the vanilla-ness of Brent Brennan for me on Saturday.
Yes. I don't know what else to say, but I'm going to ask you this right now. With if you could bring back Rich Rod for 5 years and you know that he's here for 5 years and you got to tell him, hey, you actually got to recruit this time around. Would you bring back Rich Rod?
I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be mad if they hired Rich Rod. I'd be fine with it, but I would much rather them go for one of these younger up and coming, GJ Kinney type of coaches rather than
but if you're GJ
somebody
Kinney,
who's go ahead.
That's true. But if you're GJ Kinney, let me ask you this. And you know that you're probably going to have a really good opportunity in the next year or two. Is Arizona the job you want?
I mean, it's still a Power 5 job. It's in the Big 12. The Big 12 right now is in a position where any team could come, like any coach should think they can come into the Big 12 and get their team to the top and stay at the top pretty regularly. There's no dominant program in the Big 12 like there is in the SEC, the Big 10, whatever. So I think it's appealing for that standpoint. I also think it's appealing now in the short term because you saw how fast Jed Fish could turn it around. So I think that'll appeal to coaches as well. So I don't know. There's risk. There's risk in staying at your mid-major school longer times, waiting for the bigger job, because it only takes 1 5 and 7 season at a mid-major to, cool your flame a little bit. So you kind of got to strike while the iron's hot. If Arizona's willing to pay GJ Kinney, I don't think he would say no.
All right, now let me ask you this before we go though. We got one more read here. Circle K. Listen, John Brogan, when was the last time that you went to Circle K? I need you to be honest here. Ben, our good friend Ben White, when he is scouting tight ends, he always goes to Circle K. Even when he was on the beaches in Barcelona scouting tight ends, he was still looking for a Circle K as well. Are you as committed to Circle K as our good friend Ben White and the pursuit of the tight end position?
I'm not committed to tight ends like Ben White is, but I was at Circle K at about 5 o'clock today. So,
all right, what'd you get? What did you get?
I got a few Monster energy drinks, and I got my kids an icy.
Oh, well, there you go, right there. And Brogan's got massive children, so again, they need to. Nash needs to be fed. Circle K is doing this properly. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. All right, but for the, let's see here. Very much appreciate all of you, though, doing a very good job. Also, limited time offer here. Intro offer, $48, $79. It's cut off from $79. Become a Die Hard today. Official member, Die Hard, top level access, all kinds of good stuff. And Die Hard membership, free t-shirt of your choice, access to the written content, Discord lounge, discount on all events. All kinds of really, really good stuff. JJ Salinas says, I've been to Circle K 5 times this past week. Atta baby. Back the K. Very much appreciate it. Okay, back the AMD. I got to tell you something real quick before we get off. I wanted to get a job for 4 hours a month at the Circle K on 6th Street, but only 4 hours a month and only at that one. But the people up above, I think, believe that it probably wasn't the best look for me, so I will not be getting a job at Circle K for 4 hours per month. So I tried my best, tried to do what I could. But on that note, for Mr. John Brogan, for the prodigious Kevin Thomas behind the scenes. I am merely Mike Luke. We will be back with you tomorrow at 10:30. TTFN, ta-ta for now. You've been listening to the Wildcats postgame show.
We all silly like the mayor.